Buenas tardes, good afternoon, good local time, wherever you are. It's a real pleasure to be on the fourth session today of the sixth day of the European Literature Festival here in Tokyo. We're today in Instituto Cervantes, and it's a privilege. We're delighted to have our friends from Lithuania, a country we all love, and also is part of this pan-European spirit that is surrounding these days of dialogue between the cultures. So very, very happy. Quickly, housekeeping, just remember to click the button with the little world icon, a worldwide icon inside. If you click there, you'll be able to change the translation. You'll be able to change from the original language to Japanese and to change it during the question. So it will be great if you can use that for getting all the translations. And we quickly welcome you to the centennial celebration of Jonas Mekas. I hope I'm pronouncing it well. One of the most prominent culture figures of Lithuania and global cultural phenomenon in his own right. Today's talk between Julius Cis and Yuki Nagai will focus on shedding light on writings and reflecting upon Jonas Mekas' life story. This event is part of the International Jonas Mekas Centennial Program and seeks to expand the recognition of his writings and encourage deeper explorations of Mekas' literary legacy. We're going to first welcome to the stage Mr. Julius Cis, a filmmaker, poet, who was a close friend of Jonas Mekas since 1992. Cis has been working at the Anthology Film Archives as a program curator and coordinator. She has made over dozens of films, including a cinematic portrait of Jonas Mekas. This is a beautiful title. Meanwhile, a Butterfly Flies. He has recently compiled a 3-volume set of Jonas Mekas writing published in Lithuania by Odile Publishing House. Please, a big welcome of applause. With him, we have the privilege of having Yuki Nagai, who's a poet and performer. She received the Poetry and Thought Newcomers Award in 2012. Her poetry collection, Absentee Cities, was awarded by the Rekitei Prize. And in her work, she used a cross-disciplinary approach of poetic practice. Please welcome her to the stage. Thank you very much. And of course, we would like to thank the EU delegation in Japan, the Mita Bungaku magazine, the Embassy of Lithuania. They want to help to thank Cervantes, which for us is a privilege. And please welcome Julius Cis and Yuki Nagai on conversation. Thank you very much. We will get your translator to Vietnam. Perfect. So, yes. And the floor is yours.
Aš išsilaikiau, tu išsilaikei, jie, jos išsilaikė. Mes išsilaikėme, jie išlaikė. Ne. Rusena laiko vėjas. Aš skaičiau Platau, Augustiną ir Šventą Joną. Tarp kita ko, skaičiau Kantą, Jėzų Kristų, Heideggerį ir Dantę. Einu be vilties, bet vis dar idealistas. Einu aš per suardytą, užnuodytą žemę, dar vis tikėdamas į stebuklą. Stebuklas. Beveik stebuklas. Beveik stebuklas. Beveik. Bet beveik yra tai maždaug kaip nori peršokti 2 metrus ir beveik, bet neperšokti.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, everyone who came, ladies and gentlemen. For me, it's a privilege and very happy day to very briefly introduce Jonas' writings. Why briefly? Because to talk about Jonas' writings, we'll need a day or two. First of all, I want to say a few words about these 3 wonderful books published in Lithuania and a small publishing house, but because of success of these 3 books, all of them they're sold out. The publisher got big name now. They are very, very special. First is poetry. In the poetry, I put all Jonas' poetry books, and then a dozen not published, his poems in English. The greatest value of his book, and again I must say a big thanks to Sebastian, his son. At the end of the book we have QR code, and QR code is with Jonas 2 years before his death, reading Semeniškių Idylės, being 94 years old. So it's very special. The second book, it's short stories, never put together as a book. Very few were translated. Very few were published in some magazines, mostly Lithuanian magazines in Canada or the States. And third book is few Jonas scripts, but of course the beginning of the book is his the only problem script what he wrote. It's Guns of the Trees. And this, of course, before starting looking for the money, you have to write the script. So the script really different from what's happened in the film, and but the script is very well written and wonderful, not just for the filmmakers, for film students, but also for people who are interested in Jonas' writings. And the end of the book, it's Jonas kind of only one play what he wrote. He wrote that play in 1954 in English, but then for some reason he put it away for almost like 40 years. And then finally the play was written in Lithuanian. and was staged in Vilnius at the National Theatre. So that's all about books. And now I want to start with Seminiškių idylės, with the first Seminiškių idylė. And you'll hear Jonas' voice reading it in Brooklyn in 2016.
Seminiškių idylės. Pirmoji idylė. Senas yra lietaus šniokštimas. Senas yra lietaus šniokštimas krūmų šakomis. Tetervinų dundėjimas vasaros aušros raudonume. Senas yra mūsų šis kalbėjimas. Apie geltonus miežių, avižų laukus, piemenų ugniakurus rudens šlapioj, vėjuotoj vienumoj, apie bulviakasius ir apie vasaros sunkias tvankas, baltą žiemų blizgesį, važių dindėjimą begaliniuose keliuos. Ir apie sunkius rąstų vežimus, dirvonų akmenis, apie raudonas molio krosnis ir laukų klintis. O kai prie lempų vakarais rudens laukų pilkėjime, apie rytojaus turgaus vežimus, apie išskendusius ištrenktus spalio vieškelius, šlapius bulviakasius. Senas yra mūsų šis gyvenimas, ilgom kartom nuvaikščioti laukai ir įsispaudę dirvos. Kiekviena žemės pėda kalba ir kvėpuoja dar tėvais. Iš tų pačių vėsių ir akmeninių šulinių jie girdydavo savo grįžusias plačias bandas. Ir kai išdūpdavo jų pirkių aslos, kai gryčių sienos imdavo lėtai birėt, iš tų pačių duobių jie besdavo geltoną molį, auksinį smėlį. Iš tų pačių laukų. Ir kai ir mes išeisim, kiti sėdės ant mėlynų palautės akmenų, šienaus sužėlusias lankas ir ars atokanės. Ir kai iš darbo grįžę sės už stalų, kalbės kiekvienas stalas, molinis ąsotis, kiekvienas sienos rąstas. Jie prisimins plačias geltonas smėlio žvirduobes ir vėjuje banguojančius rugių laukus. Mūsų moterų liūdnas dainas linų palautėse ir šitą kvapą pirmą kartą naujoj troboj, šviežių samanų kvepėjimą. O senas yra dobilų žydėjimas, arklių prunkštimas vasaros naktim ir velenų akėčių plūgų čežesys, malūnų dirnų akmenų sunkus bildėjimas, daržų ravėtojų skarelių baltas mirdesys. Senas yra lietaus šniokštimas krūmų šakomis, tetervenudėjimas vasaros aušros raudonume. Senas yra mūsų šis kalbėjimas.
Well, now I'd like to ask Yuki to say a few words.
すみません、もう聞こえますでしょうか。はい。すみません、ちょっと今回ハイブリッド式ということですね。私は英語より日本語の方が得意なのでできるだけですね、詩人としてきちんとですね、母語の下からね発音したいということで私は日本語で喋らせていただきます。はい、それでこの詩ですね、皆さんも見ていただいたと思いますので、それぞれどういうふうに感じられたかっていうのは、詩がそうであるように皆様が感じられるように感じていただければと思いますが、私が一人の詩人としてこの詩をどう感じるか、非常にですねこれを書かれたのは多分もうかなり前ですよね。多分1900 so this is 19 this point 1940だからもう1940だからもう70年とか80年そのくらい前ですよね。それだけ前と思えないほど非常に今の現代史の目から見た場合でも非常に魅力的であると思います。なぜかというと、一つ一つの景色の匂い、その音、聴覚的な視覚が言葉によってあらわになっていく。例えばこの茂みの最初のところですね。茂みの枝に降りかかる雨の音、世界があらわになる時っていうのは、例えば雨が降っているという現象であらわになるわけではないんです。雨が茂みに降ってそこにぶつかること、一つの主体が一つの他者と出会って反響することによって世界が姿を現す。そうした繊細な目を持っているというのが詩人の目だと思うんですね。そして全てのそうした感じで一つ一つ、例えば雨であり茂みであり黒い蝶、獣や畑、そしてそれを見ている人に主体が移っていく、目が移っていく。そうすることによって一つ一つに目が宿り、生命が生まれ、世界が息づいていく。それは詩の目であると同時に、このヨナスが人々に対して、世界に対して非常に優しく親しく等しい目を持っていたという証ではないかなと思います。
Thank you very much. It's wonderful. Jonas was born in a big family, in a farmer's family, in a small village of Seminishke. He lived, as he recalls, in a happy family. There wasn't a very rich family, not at all. But they were growing all together 5 brothers and 1 sister. And a very interesting thing, I read Jonas talking about work. He said, work, we never heard word work. We only learned word work when Soviets came to Lithuania. Before was normal thing. It's you have to feed in the morning animals, you have to prepare hay, you have to do this. It was daily routine. For us, it was very normal. We didn't have to work and the rest. Everything was normal. The work, the rest, the singing, the celebration, everything was part of daily life. So he lived in this paradise, let's go. And then the greatest passion of Jonas, as soon as he learned how to read, were books. The first was his oldest brother's Povilas library. He had all his books. Then he claimed, but by age 17, he read all the books written in Lithuanian language, translated Lithuanian language, also including the magazines and newspapers. So books were his passion. And then this Adolphus, who was 3 years younger, by that when Jonas was 7, they started their own newspaper. So the only one, so Jonas will write a newspaper, and only one subscriber was Adolphus. And then little by little they got into it, and then both of them, they start publishing books, stories, and one of the first memories of Jonas from his childhood, he was maybe 3 or 4. He remember was sitting at before going to bed, sitting in bed and telling his mother and father long stories, kind of, including what's happened during the day, all work was done. And there was already his he already started towards literature, towards writing, but they really what pushed him when he really decided to become a poet was event. He used to, he was like 10 years old. He used to go and collect the post from the post office to bring to his village. And every time he'll go there, he'll see this very tall, black hair, beautiful face, very serious man who will send some letters and pick up some correspondence, mostly were like literary magazines and newspapers. And he was fascinated by that person. And finally, he asked the post office clerk, who is this guy? And he said, oh, this is very, very famous Jewish poet. And seeing this almost mystical figure, he decided, I want to be a poet too. So, unfortunately, when Germans came, the poet and the post office clerk were shot. So he never, Jonas never learned the name of the poet. And then in 1940, Lithuania was occupied by Soviet Union. By that time, he was 18, Jonas. He got his first camera. He really wanted to, photo camera. He really wanted to start taking pictures. And as he said, his first attempt to take a picture was when the Russian tanks were rolling into his village, and said, "Oh, that's going to be interesting. It's going to be my first picture." So he sent not by the wall of a cemetery and trying to take a picture. And of course, he was immediately seen by the one of the commanders. They stopped the tank. He grabbed the camera. He smashed the camera. So it was the first encounter of Jonas as an artist to deal with the power. And then most of his life, you know that of course, most of his life, he had to deal with power, had to deal against permissions, against somebody showing powers to a people. Then came German occupation, and Jonas was involved in the most young Lithuanian students from the high school. He was involved in a small group of anti-Nazi underground movement. The only thing what they did, they used to print the type, not print, but type the, and then made a few copies of the newsletter. And Jonas was a typewriter, so he has a typewriter and he will type. And because at the time he used to live in the Bergy, not anymore with his parents, at his uncle, who was a priest, and he will hide the typewriter in a shed for safety reasons. And one morning he comes and the typewriter is gone. So he went. He goes to his friends and they talk, and it's very clear that immediately he has to disappear. And he refused to go to the forest to join like type of the Soviet partisans. The only possibility, the only way from this situation was to disappear, to escape. And was very little time to decide. Decision was made very quickly. So he left with his brother Adolphus. He left to Germany, pretending to be students who were going to Vienna to continue the studies. Of course, when they got into Germany, they were taken from the train and they put in the labor camp. And then after labor camp was DP camps. The whole station was so sad because after the victory, he had no way to go back, because he did write some pamphlets, some poetry against Stalin, and Lithuania again was occupied by Soviets. So the only way for him just going further and further from his home. And of course, that was probably the hardest thing to understand, what maybe never he will able to go back home. And he had no news what's happened to the family. The only news were like it's occupied by Soviets and they taking people to Siberia. And for the young writer, for the young man, that was very dark period of his life. But even so, in 1948, in Germany, being in the DP camp, he writes and publishes Semeniškių Idylės. And Jonas was said, I didn't write this as a poetry. For me, being away for quite a few years, being this kind of darkness, suddenly those memories came back, memories of daily life, memories of how the fields smell. I can hear every sound made in the house or in the fields, and I had to write down. It basically was writing down the memories, writing down your feeling at the time. And I'd like to ask to put Jonas' 24th idyll. Why 24th? It's not just because Christmas, when at the time Jonas is born, but it talks about snow. Even though when Jonas was already after 70, he still was waiting. The time he was living in New York, still waiting for the snow as a child. Still was magic for him. So this idyll about waiting for the snow.
Dvidešimt ketvirtoji idilė. Sniegas ir vienų kalėdų prisiminimas. Vėlavosi tais metais sniegas ir ruduo lyg laukėko, lyg gaišo vis. Ir dar ir lapkričio gale, ir gruodį trinko ant laukų lietus. Ir rėkdami ir šaukdami botagais ūkininkai plėtė arklius, traukiančius patvinusiais išskydusiais keliais vežėčias. Ir mėšlini laukai ir krūmų plotai, kiemai ir dažai, iš urbėtų bulvienų ežios, vienas tik vanduo, vienas begalinis liūnas, vienas nesibaigiantis vanduo. Bet tada, kai niekas jau nesitikėjo sniego, kai ūkininkai ėmė apsiprast su lietumis, staiga prieš pat kalėdas vieną naktį pradėjo šalti. O kitą ryt, kai vienkiemiai pravėrė paryčiui duris, žiūrėjo sulig tarnomis į kiemus, vienas debesis, viena bespalvė masė krito ant laukų, ant tvartų šulinio. Ir tada pradėjo šalti. Naktį antrą ir speigas kaip dantim, sunkiais dangčiais saugojo užgulę šuliniai vis senkančius dugnus. Ir kai naktim išėję klausėmės, kaip paryčiais, girdėjom, kaip pošėjo upės ledas, kaip neramiai sugrūbusiai toli sodybose spradėdamos judėjo tvoros. Ir tyla, tokia skardi, tokia šalta tyla. Virš žuvų perkalų, viršum laukų sukritusių sniedynos sodžių, tokia šalta, tokia speigi tyla. Tik tiesiai, taip aukštyn, tik mėlyna, vingiuota srovele, į dangų rūksta dūmai. O buvo jau prieš pat kalėdas. Ir rytą visais keliais skubėjo ir arotas, lėkdami lengvai arklių sumintų sniego, žiūrėdami, kaip pakelės krūmokšniuose, kaip šiluose, kaip ant visų šakų blizgėjo nuostabi šarma. Taip dyvinai ir tik girgždėjo sniegas, o tolumoj giliai it mažyčiai žemės grumulėliai kyšojo sniegynuos pasinėrę kaminai. miestelis.
ですね、今の詩をの朗読を聞いていただいて、歌を歌ってるようだなというふうにはみんな思われたと思いますけれども、この詩、いわゆるこれですね、セミニシ系の国家を考えるときに2つ重要な点があって、まずその彼がドイツにいたということ、それでいわゆる故郷からですね離れざるを得ない、故郷を一度失っているということ、さらにそのドイツにいながら母語である自分の母国語でこれを書いているということがあります。要は別々の2つの空間ですよね。この2つの隔たり、言語とこの空間の隔たりの中に埋められないものがあるからこそ、その繊細な感覚を思い出す。これは一つの詩人の特徴だと思うんですが、ね、昨日ちょっとですね事前に打ち合わせした時にすごく面白いお話を聞いたんですね。このセミニシ系を書かれた時にリトアニアの言葉でもちろん書かれているんだけれども、さらにその中でもその地方独特のですね、彼が生まれ育った場所独特の言葉、もうその時点ですでに失われつつある言葉をあえて取り入れてこの詩を作っている。だからその本国の人が聞いてもところどころ非常に読解が難しいところがある、そういうふうに作られたというふうに聞きました。
Right. Yes, it was, as I mentioned to you, and it's written in a tradition of the poetry. It actually was written by Adolphus Mekas. The Jonas did use, as you call, piliečių term. It's not a very big region, very close to a Latvian border, but they kind of own. Not a language, but some words where you cannot really, Lithuanians would understand that. But it's those words, they're very old, and they lived with those people, and that's a beauty of it.
はい。ですね、この母語というのは多分ヨナスにとってはもう最後まで大事なものだったと思うんですね。というのもその言語っていうのはやはりその国の文化ですね。文化だったり、風土ですよね。そうしたものから成り立ち、さらにその言語から国がさらに成り立っていく、国の景色が成り立っていく、そうした全てを、含んだもの、言語によって人は表現されるものによって人は育まれる。ですからこの母国語というものを彼がその晩年までずっと完全に英語とかですね、最後はそのアメリカにずっと住まれてたと思いますけれども、完全に英語に書き換えてしまうのではなくて、やはり最後までこの母国語というものを大事に保って、それで詩を作っていった。それに非常に重要な点があると思うんです。というのも、ですね、この詩を読んだ時に私が感じたのは非常に日本の和歌を思い出したんですね。その西行とか柿の本の人窓とか、この自然によって世界や人を表現していく、そうした日本の風土ですね、文化的な言語の風土に非常に似通っていく。でそれは彼が最終的に俳句というものを見出すことにもつながっていくかなと思うんですけれども、やっぱりそういうところにこのジョナスの 言語表現者としての何か秘密があるのかなと思います。
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you. But then, after the publishing Semnishki Diles, of course, still being in camps and facing every day's reality, dark reality, without any knowledge where to go. The only thing, as Jonas said, he just felt like he's like the stream of the brook is taking him somewhere. But where he stopped even asking any questions, he just said, whatever, it's happened, it's happened. I just want to read excerpt from Jonas' book, his diary book, I Had Nowhere to Go. Very short excerpt just for you to understand how a young poet, young writer, young man felt in those days. And then sometimes in the middle of the writing, suddenly everything collapses. What for? For whom? For whom I'm writing? Why write if nobody going to read this? Maybe it's better to carry it, to burn it up inside and burn till it dies. Because they are killing, they're wiping out my country. Men with bloody fingers are walking all around the world, aiming at my neck. They strangle all my people. They'll cut out their tongues. What sense is there then to write? For whom I'm writing? So I sit at the table again, and with my eyes heavy, I stare at the paper, and I write. And what I write is drenched with hopelessness and madness of times we live in. Insane crimes, insane waiting, when only thing you have is the waiting itself. Yes. Because one of the theme of this festival was war refugees and the people, so we have considered it in Jonas' writings, talking about those things, and just talking general. Yes, what's left for people who are rushed by war from their own homes, own countries. They waiting for what? And it was one, was two, was three, with almost every day we have with wars or conflicts. And just to finish with a short session, I want to read Jonas' short text, what's a part of the second book, short stories and text. It's called Boundaries of Pain Are Limitless. The other night, I watched on TV a court mother holding a dying child in her arms, and her cry was so breathtaking, so breathbreaking, so painful. But I thought the earth will open and swallow Iraq and us all. Her pain was so huge, so unbearable. But the earth didn't open. The mother's cry was cut off by another news item. The TV kept going on. The boundaries of pain have become endless, without limits. Early in the morning, same day, I look at Pulitzer's Prize photograph in New York Times. 2 little orphans, Gigi Street. I have seen stray cats and dogs in dirty streets and some eternal emptiness, same tone, breath-taking sadness. We see a lot of horror pictures these days on TV and elsewhere. Beijing, Tibet, Vilnius, Kuwait, Kurdistan. We are getting used to them. And I don't care anymore about grown-ups. Maybe they brought it all upon themselves. But why children? Why should children have to die and then be buried and be covered with stones and rocks on muddy slopes of northern Iraq? Their little bodies, their little faces, so thin, so pale from hunger, fear, and daily visions of horror. Yes, they can still feel as they die, the desperation of the hands of their mothers, fathers clutching to them, trying to hold them here on this earth. It's all so senseless. But we talk about politics and the balance of power, and we keep talking at the United Nations, and we think all will be all right if we drop some blankets and some loaves of bread from the heavens. We create these incredible, painful circumstances, and then we walk away and leave it alone. One big suffering, one big endless pain. I don't think our responsibility is only to liberate and freedom of Kuwait and oil fields, America, and all of humanity will be judged ultimately by the amount of the suffering of little children buried in those thousands of nameless graves. Yes, the TV is still going. It says the Gulf War is now officially over. I don't know how we can measure our pain, but I know what there is no measure invented yet, but could assess the hugeness of the pain reflected in the eyes of those children. Hopelessness, what they saw in those pale, starved little faces. Now, so peaceful, finally under those cold mountain rocks. I don't want this to be a curse or bad curse on anybody, but I think it will be good for the good of all humanity if the cry of that mother would never leave her ears, and the faces of those children would remain engraved behind our lids forever as we continue living, as a measure of our validity of our own life. Can you say a few words?
はい。これだからあれですよね、
すみません、1 minute or two, please. We need to go for the second event. Thank you very much. But just, or you can say the final remarks, please.
はい。そうですね。だからじゃあ全体的なまとめにいきますね。こちらのすべて今まで見てきたものと、またさらに皆さんがご存知の通り、ヨナス・メカスというのは、映像作家でありという面をとって映像も撮り、さらにこうして批評家でもあり、活動家でもあり、詩人でもある。このすべてというのは実は一つのそれぞれを見るから違うように見えますけれども、実は根本に一つの理由がある。それは、ヨナスがずっと言っていたように、私は詩人である っていうところですね。で昨日ちょっといただいた資料からきちんと読みたいと思うんですけれども、これヨナスがそのインタビューに答えたセリフなんですが、詩は存在の態度、そのあり方である。生きること、見ること、経験することの気高く当然とした状態なのです。芸術と生活の両面において現実を見る、認識するための強烈な方法です。詩というものをただ書くこと、何かを表現することというふうに思っていると、こういうふうに世界は見られないし、こういうふうな表現、様々な表現にはなりません。ただ詩を、この現実を見る方法、現実を多面的に多層的に見る、その詩というのを人との距離、世界との距離、言語の距離、そうしたものを埋めるもの、そういう世界を明らかにするための一つの目である、詩の体であるということを考えたとき、詩というのがそういうあり方だというふうに考えたときに、すべてが説明がつくことです。そのように世界を見るからこういう文章を書き、そのように世界を見るからああいうふうな詩を書ける。そして映像も彼にとっては一つの言語であり詩なのです。だから彼にとっては全てが詩としての行為、詩としての態度。だからこそ彼は一貫して確かな哲学ですね、フィロソフィーを感じることができるんだと思います。彼の表現からは。はい。
Thanks a million for this wonderful presentation. We will have a 5 minutes break and then we continue with the latest session of today, Island. Thank you very much.